The eerie Burger King restaurant, tucked away behind a forgotten highway exit, begins as an unassuming setting for a peculiar and unsettling job. The narrator, having stumbled upon an oddly handwritten flyer advertising a night shift position, finds themselves drawn to apply out of sheer curiosity and a need for work. This seemingly ordinary fast food establishment, with its promise of good pay and its mysterious stipulation of must follow instructions, quickly transforms from a simple job opportunity into an unsettling journey into a world that exists between reality and the unknown. What begins as an innocuous choice soon evolves into a horrifying spiral that seems inescapable. The narrator's once mundane shift becomes an ever-tightening noose that draws them deeper into an increasingly bizarre and supernatural experience. From the first night, the restaurant feels off, an unnatural cleanliness about it, standing in stark contrast to the decay that surrounds it. As the narrator steps inside for their first shift, they immediately notice the eerie silence broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint sizzle of fryers. The building, pristine yet sterile in a way that feels alien, pulses with an almost oppressive atmosphere, casting an unsettling glow under the flickering neon sign that serves as its only illumination. It's not just the location that feels off, it's the rules that come with the job. Rules that seem both cryptic and chilling. The narrator is handed a sheet of instructions by the manager Ray, who despite his seemingly neutral demeanor conveys a palpable sense of fatigue and dread, hinting that the rules are not mere company policies but essential to avoid things going sideways fast. The first few rules seem innocuous enough, but quickly take on a darker undertone as the narrator reads further. A Whopper with no meat must be served with a smile, no questions asked. This is a rule that feels slightly off-kilter, but it doesn't raise alarm just yet. The strange prohibition against making eye contact with a man wearing a plastic crown who doesn't order but simply takes is another odd instruction that doesn't immediately seem to warrant concern. The more the narrator reads, however, the more the rules seem less like company policies and more like rituals. Rules designed to keep something much darker at bay. The fryers, for example, must be left alone after exactly 3:33 a.m., and knocking at the back door must be ignored regardless of the circumstances. These rules begin to pile up, and the narrator feels increasingly trapped, bound to a strange code of behavior that starts to feel less like a bomb and more like a ritualistic, otherworldly contract. Despite the unsettling nature of the rules, the narrator presses on, unaware of just how deep into the abyss they are about to be pulled. As the night progresses, their first encounter with the customers reveals that this is no ordinary fast food job. The first customer arrives just as Ray predicted at 11:17 p.m., ordering a Whopper with no meat, no pickles, and no receipt. The interaction is unsettling in its ordinariness. No questions asked, no small talk, just a transaction of food for exact change, followed by a strange departure into the night. The narrator is left puzzled and slightly unnerved, yet they're reminded of Ray's ominous words. Rule number 1, never ask about the no-meat Whopper. This rule, seemingly inconspicuous, becomes the first in a series of strange occurrences that blur the line between reality and something far more sinister. The customers who come through the drive-thru become increasingly odd. Each one seems detached, acting as if they are on autopilot. They provide exact change, speak little, and display faces that seem to blur in and out of memory. The narrator's mind begins to protest the sheer strangeness of the situation, but their instincts are drowned by the overwhelming force of the rules. No questions, no engagement. Just serve the food and send them on their way. With each passing hour, the unease in the restaurant grows, and the night takes on a rhythm that feels less like a choice and more like a ritual, a performance that must be followed without deviation. As the night progresses, the increasingly bizarre behavior of the customers, some of whom seem to physically deteriorate before the narrator's eyes, only deepens the sense of dread. One customer who appears normal at first returns with a blank expression, her face growing more hollow, and her movements becoming more mechanical with each successive visit. Her once bright eyes now appear sunken, and her voice is devoid of emotion, as though she is no longer fully human. The narrator continues to serve her, following the rules despite a growing sense of horror. They are no longer just an employee in a fast food joint. They are part of something much darker. Another customer appears wearing a pig mask and breathing heavily through the snout. Another, a man with no skin, orders a Coke. These grotesque figures, once oddities, now seem like fixtures, as if the restaurant itself is drawing them in, making them part of its ever-expanding ritual. Each customer, each transaction is another step in the cycle that the narrator now finds themselves caught in. The restaurant's physical environment begins to warp as well. The fryers malfunction at precisely 3:33 a.m., sputtering and hissing in an unnatural way, and the fryer oil grows darker and thicker, almost as if something is alive within it. The temperature in the room fluctuates unnaturally, and the air grows thick with a nauseating smell that mixes the burnt grease with something sweet yet metallic. The restaurant, once a place for quick meals and mundane tasks, now feels like a threshold between worlds, its sterile cleanliness now replaced by an unnatural sense of oppression. The rules seem to govern not just the actions of the employees, but the very essence of the space itself. At 2:11 a.m., the knocking at the back door begins, as always, slow and deliberate. Ray positions himself in front of it, blocking anyone from opening the door, his expression unreadable, like a sentinel guarding the entrance to some forbidden place. The narrator feels the weight of the moment, but follows the rule without question. They are no longer an observer. They are a part of the cycle, bound to it by the rules, unable to break free. With each passing shift, the unease deepens, and the narrator begins to lose themselves in the routine. The once odd customers now seem like regular fixtures of the night. The woman with the wide eyes has become a symbol of the strange otherworldly forces at work in the restaurant. Her deterioration continues with each return, her body slowly unraveling into something monstrous. Yet the narrator is compelled to serve her without question, repeating the same motions, following the same rules. It is as if the act of serving her is the only thing that keeps the cycle going, the only thing that keeps the restaurant from descending into chaos. The rules have become second nature, and the narrator is now a cog in the machine, moving through the motions without thought, without questioning. Their identity has slowly faded, replaced by a numb acceptance of the bizarre reality they now inhabit. The horror reaches a crescendo as the narrator realizes that they are no longer in control of their own actions. The strange occurrences, once unsettling, have become a part of their reality, a reality they cannot escape. The customers have become grotesque reflections of the restaurant's supernatural power, their behavior becoming more erratic, more monstrous with each shift. The rules, which once seemed like strange instructions, now feel like unbreakable laws, governing not just their actions, but the very fabric of the space they inhabit. They are no longer an employee. They are a part of the restaurant, bound to it by the rules, trapped in a never-ending cycle of strange rituals and eerie occurrences. As the night deepens, the sense of inevitability becomes overwhelming. The narrator is no longer questioning the rules. They have accepted them as their reality. The once familiar routine of serving food has become a ritual that must be followed without question. The rules have become ingrained in their mind, shaping their actions, shaping their very identity. The drive-through menu flickers to life. The fryers sputter, and the customers continue to arrive, each one more bizarre than the last. The narrator has become a part of the restaurant, a part of the strange supernatural force that governs it. There is no escape. The cycle continues, and the narrator serves, smiles, and follows the rules, knowing that they are now trapped in an endless loop of eerie rituals and supernatural forces. The Burger King is no longer just a fast food restaurant. It is a prison, and the narrator is its keeper. In the end, the narrator's transformation is complete. They have become a part of the restaurant's dark heart, bound to it by the rules and the strange supernatural forces that govern it. The line between the living and the dead, the human and the monstrous, has been blurred beyond recognition. The restaurant is no longer just a job, it is a threshold between worlds, and the narrator is now its keeper. Bound to serve the strange customers and ensure that the flame never dies, the cycle continues, and the narrator, once an ordinary employee, has become part of the dark, inescapable world of the Burger King. There is no turning back. The eerie atmosphere surrounding the Burger King restaurant that the narrator finds themselves working at unfolds as a terrifying reality that gradually blurs the line between the real world and something darker and more supernatural. It all begins when the narrator stumbles upon a handwritten flyer posted outside a laundromat, advertising a night shift job at an out-of-the-way Burger King. The promise of good pay and the unusual stipulation of must-follow instructions piques their interest, and they apply out of sheer curiosity, not realizing the consequences of accepting the job. From the very beginning, the location of the restaurant is off. It's hidden behind a forgotten highway exit, not listed on any GPS, and stands out in stark contrast to the dilapidated surroundings. While everything else around it decays, the building itself remains oddly pristine, almost unnaturally clean. As the narrator enters the establishment for their first shift, the familiar buzz of the fluorescent lights and the flickering neon sign cast a sickly yellow glow that immediately sets the stage for what is to come. The air is thick with the smell of burnt oil mixed with something strangely sweet and metallic, a combination that makes the narrator's skin crawl as they proceed through the dimly lit lobby and into the restaurant itself. Inside the restaurant's sterile atmosphere is unsettling. The walls, floors, and equipment are pristine. Too pristine for a fast food restaurant tucked away in such a forgotten area. It feels as though the building has been frozen in time, untouched by the wear and tear that surrounds it. The lobby is dim with only a thin strip of fluorescent lighting leaking out from the kitchen. The automatic doors open on their own, as if welcoming the narrator into a space that doesn't abide by the natural laws of the world. The manager, Ray, greets the narrator with a cold smile, but it's clear that something is amiss. Ray's eyes are sunken, as though he hasn't slept in weeks, and his demeanor exudes a kind of weariness that suggests he knows far more than he lets on. He hands the narrator a rolled-up piece of paper wrapped in plastic and tells them that this is the set of rules they must follow. The rules are not standard company policies. Ray insists, but they are essential for the shift to proceed smoothly. The narrator, though unsettled, is intrigued, and as they read the rules, a feeling of dread begins to settle in their stomach. The instructions are odd, cryptic, and unnatural, suggesting that this fast food restaurant operates under a set of bizarre and supernatural guidelines. Among the rules are several strange and unsettling instructions. One of the first is that if a customer orders a Whopper with no meat, the employee must serve it with a smile and without asking questions. The rule makes the narrator uneasy, but they brush it off as some kind of quirky company policy. However, the next rule is far more disturbing. Employees are instructed to avoid making eye contact with a man wearing a plastic crown who enters the restaurant. This man does not order food, he simply takes whatever he wants without paying. The idea of a customer who does not follow the usual rules of commerce is disorienting, but it is the next set of instructions that truly begin to unsettle the narrator. They are told that the fryers, the equipment that cooks the food, must not be disturbed after 3:33 a.m. If there is a knock at the back door at exactly 2:11 p.m., employees must ignore it regardless of who is knocking or why. There are even more bizarre rules. The drive-through speaker must be unplugged if it starts speaking in reverse, and the narrator is forbidden from mopping behind the ice cream machine. These rules are not just odd, they are downright surreal. Yet Ray remains unfazed as he explains them, and his cold, emotionless demeanor sends a chill through the narrator. It becomes clear that the rules are not just company policies. They are mandates that must be followed, or something far worse could occur. Despite the mounting sense of unease, the narrator follows the rules, unsure of what to expect next. The first customer arrives at precisely 11:15 p.m., as Ray predicted, and orders a Whopper with no meat, no pickles, and no receipt. The interaction is unsettlingly ordinary, and the narrator hands over the meal with the same blank smile they've been instructed to wear. The customer drives off into the night without a word, and the narrator is left wondering about the strange request. Ray, ever the enigma, simply mutters, "Rule number 1, never ask about the no-meat Whopper." This first encounter sets the stage for what becomes an increasingly bizarre and unnerving night shift. As the hours pass, more customers arrive, each one more strange than the last. They offer exact change, speak little, and show no emotion. Their faces seem to blur and fade in the narrator's mind, almost as though the narrator's own mind is refusing to retain their features. The strangeness of those interactions begins to feel more like a ritual, something that must be performed without question. The customer's behavior is robotic, detached, and unyielding, and the narrator feels increasingly alienated and trapped in a world that seems disconnected from reality. At 3:33 a.m., just as the rules dictate, the fryers malfunction, sputtering and hissing in a way that feels unnatural. The fryer oil, which once seemed normal, now appears thick and dark, almost as though something sinister is moving inside it. The smell in the air becomes overpowering, a mix of burnt oil and something far worse, something metallic and sickly. The restaurant, which once seemed like a sterile, if slightly strange fast food joint, now feels suffocating, as if the very walls are closing in on the narrator. The knocking at the back door, which had been an odd occurrence the first time, now feels like a threat, an omen that something terrible is waiting just on the other side. Ray stands in front of the door, arms raised in a protective gesture, blocking anyone from opening it. The knocking stops after a few seconds, but the unease lingers, and the narrator can't shake the feeling that something is lurking just beyond the door, something they must never acknowledge. As the night continues, the customers become more grotesque, more nightmarish in their appearance. A man with no skin orders a Coke, his exposed muscle and tendons twitching unnaturally. Another customer, hidden beneath a hoodie, appears to be made of vines, twisting and writhing, as though alive in a way no human being could be. These figures, once simply strange, now appear as grotesque reflections of the supernatural forces at work in the restaurant. Yet despite their monstrous appearances, the narrator serves them without hesitation. As instructed, the rules are clear: serve the food, say the words, and don't question it. With each passing interaction, the narrator feels a part of themselves slip away, their humanity slowly being consumed by the strange reality of the restaurant. They are no longer just an employee. They are a part of the system, a cog in the wheel of a greater, more malevolent force. The atmosphere in this restaurant becomes more oppressive as the night drags on. The fryer oil grows darker, thicker, and more unnatural. The air is thick with the stench of burnt grease and something far worse, something that feels like decay. The fluorescent lights buzz and flicker overhead, casting strange shadows across the room. The knocking at the back door continues at exactly 2:11 a.m. as the rules dictate, and Ray stands as the sentinel, ensuring that no one opens the door. The fryers malfunction again at 3:33 a.m., their sputtering sounds filling the room with an eerie sense of dread. The restaurant, which once seemed like a normal fast food establishment, has become a prison, a place where the rules govern not just the actions of the employees, but the very fabric of the space itself. The narrator is trapped in this cycle, unable to break free, unable to question the bizarre rules that govern their existence. As the shift progresses, the narrator becomes more and more detached from reality. The customers who once seemed strange have now become grotesque, almost unrecognizable. The woman with wide eyes who once ordered a meatless Whopper has now deteriorated into something far worse. Her skin is a sickly gray, her movements stiff and robotic. Her voice is flat, devoid of emotion, and her once human features are now contorted into something alien and grotesque. The narrator serves her without hesitation, following the rules, but they can no longer ignore the growing sense of dread that fills the restaurant. The rules have become ingrained in their mind, and they follow them automatically, no longer questioning their meaning or their origins. They have become a part of the restaurant, a part of the cycle, and there is no escape. The horror escalates as the customers become even more monstrous and bizarre. A man with no skin orders a Coke. A customer made of vines orders food, his body twisting unnaturally. Another customer wears a pig mask, breathing through its snout. These customers, once oddities, are now regulars, fixtures of the night shift. The narrator no longer questions their presence. They simply serve them, following the rules without hesitation. The once strange, unsettling world of the restaurant has become their reality, and they have become a part of it, trapped in a never-ending cycle of strange occurrences and eerie rituals. The once ordinary fast food restaurant has transformed into a place of darkness and dread, a prison where the narrator is trapped, unable to escape. The rules have become the law of the land, and the narrator follows them without question, no longer questioning the bizarre and unsettling occurrences that fill the night. The line between reality and the supernatural has blurred, and the narrator has crossed it, becoming a part of something much darker and more malevolent than they could have ever imagined. The Burger King restaurant is no longer just a job. It is a threshold, a gateway to a world of horror from which there is no escape. The narrator is trapped, bound by the rules, and unable to break free from the cycle. The strange supernatural forces that govern the restaurant have consumed them, and they are now part of its dark, inescapable reality. There is no turning back. The cycle continues, and the narrator serves, smiles, and follows the rules. They are no longer just an employee. They are part of the machine, and the machine will not stop. The mysterious Burger King restaurant described in this narrative begins as a seemingly normal fast food job, but soon transforms into a chilling and nightmarish experience for the narrator. It begins innocuously enough when the narrator stumbles upon a crumpled flyer in a laundromat advertising a night shift position at a Burger King that promises decent pay, but comes with a peculiar stipulation: must follow instructions. The curiosity piqued, the narrator applies for the job, unaware that they are stepping into a job that will slowly unravel their understanding of reality. What should have been a mundane fast food job quickly morphs into something much darker, and the rules they are given take on an increasingly sinister meaning. Upon arrival for the first shift, the narrator is immediately struck by the eerie atmosphere surrounding the location. The restaurant sits tucked behind an old highway turnoff not listed on any GPS and is located in an area where one wouldn't expect to find a well-maintained establishment. The building itself, although clean, feels unnaturally sterile, standing in stark contrast to the decay of its surroundings. This odd juxtaposition sets the stage for the strange and unsettling occurrences that follow. From the moment the narrator steps inside, they are greeted by a dimly lit lobby and a faint smell of burnt oil mingling with something distinctly metallic and sweet. As they proceed deeper into the restaurant, they meet Ray, the manager whose gaunt appearance and cold demeanor immediately instill a sense of discomfort. Ray hands the narrator a piece of paper wrapped in plastic, instructing them to keep it on hand at all times. This paper, Ray explains, contains rules that must be followed throughout the shift. While the narrator assumes these are company policies, they soon learn that these rules are far from ordinary and carry weight far beyond simple fast food operations. The rules themselves are bizarre and cryptic, introducing an unsettling reality that defies conventional logic. For example, if a customer orders a Whopper with no meat, the employee is required to serve it with a smile, no questions asked. Furthermore, if a man wearing a plastic crown enters the store, employees must not make eye contact with him or offer him food as he does not order. He simply takes what he wants. The rules also include odd stipulations, such as the fryers being left alone after 3:33 a.m., knocking at the back door being ignored, and the drive-through speaker being unplugged if it starts speaking in reverse. As strange as these rules are, Ray appears entirely unfazed by them, casually sipping his coffee, as if these are simply everyday operations. The first sign that something is truly wrong comes when the first customer arrives at 11:17 p.m. Just as Ray predicted, the customer orders the peculiar meatless Whopper, and the narrator dutifully prepares the sandwich as instructed, handing it out with the required, "Have a royal night." The customer then drives off, sitting still in the parking lot for a few seconds, before slowly disappearing to the night. The narrator is left to ponder the odd interaction, but Ray's warning not to ask about the no-meat Whopper lingers in their mind. As the night progresses, the weirdness only escalates. The customers become increasingly bizarre, offering exact change and speaking only to place their orders. Their faces begin to blur in the narrator's memory, as though their mind is purposefully erasing details. It's as if these customers are not entirely human, and the more the narrator interacts with them, the more detached and unnerving they become. As the hours pass, the rules take on an increasingly oppressive and inescapable quality. Each one of them is a piece of a larger puzzle, an intricate pattern that the narrator is slowly being forced to accept. At 3:33 a.m., the fryers malfunction exactly as the rules dictate. The fryers sputter and hiss, and the restaurant falls into an eerie silence. The oil in the fryer appears unnaturally thick, almost coagulated, and the smell in the air grows increasingly unpleasant, as if something is wrong in a way that words cannot describe. The knocking at the back door occurs at precisely 2:11 a.m., just as it had been foretold, and Ray stands in front of the door, ensuring that no one opens it. The knocking stops after 20 seconds, but the feeling of unease lingers in the air like a heavy fog. The narrator feels as though they are trapped in a loop of strange occurrences, each more bizarre and terrifying than the last. The once ordinary fast food job has transformed into something much darker, and the narrator is slowly being drawn deeper into its grasp. With each passing hour, the restaurant becomes less like a fast food joint and more like a living, breathing entity that is somehow connected to the supernatural forces that govern it. The strange rules, the malfunctioning appliances, and the bizarre customers all serve as reminders that this place is no longer a job. It is a place where the laws of reality no longer apply. The customers who initially seemed like mere oddities now take on an increasingly monstrous and grotesque form. The woman who orders the meatless Whopper becomes a regular fixture, her appearance growing more unsettling with each return. Her wide, unblinking eyes, once strange, are now the least of her disturbing features. Her skin turns a sickly shade of gray, and her voice becomes more mechanical, more detached, as though something inside her is unraveling. Despite the horror of her transformation, the narrator continues to follow the rules, serving her the same meal, saying the same words, and sending her off with a hollow smile. But with each encounter, the narrator feels their sense of humanity slipping away, replaced by an automatic compliance to the strange forces at work in the restaurant. The rules that once seemed arbitrary now feel like sacred decrees, and the narrator is no longer questioning them. They are simply following them like a machine going through the motions without thought or hesitation. By 3:33 a.m., the fryers malfunction again, and the restaurant becomes eerily silent. The fryer oil, once a normal substance, now seems darker and more ominous, as though something living is hiding inside it. The air is thick with the smell of burnt grease, but it is mixed with something worse, something rotting, something decayed. The atmosphere in the restaurant becomes stifling, suffocating, and the narrator begins to feel like they are trapped in a cycle they can never escape. The knocking at the back door continues at exactly 2:11 a.m., just as it always does. Ray remains stationed in front of the door, ensuring that no one opens it. The rules have become their entire reality, and the narrator can no longer imagine a world beyond them. The strange customers, once oddities, are now a permanent fixture of their life, and they have become so normalized that the narrator no longer finds them strange. The line between the living and the dead, between reality and the supernatural, has blurred, and the narrator is no longer an observer. They are a part of the machine, trapped in a never-ending cycle that will never stop. As the narrator completes their fourth shift, the sense of inevitability becomes even more pronounced. The once odd rules have become ingrained in their mind, and they follow them automatically without question. The customers are no longer just strange. They are grotesque manifestations of the supernatural forces that govern the restaurant. The woman with the wide eyes, once a curious anomaly, has become a grotesque figure, her skin gray and her movements jerky and unnatural. She orders the same meatless Whopper, no pickles, no receipt, and leaves with the same detached, lifeless expression. The narrator serves her without hesitation, following the rules, but they can no longer ignore the horror that is consuming them. The restaurant has become a prison, and the narrator is its warden. The rules, which once seemed absurd and are now the very fabric of their existence. The once ordinary fast food job has become a nightmare, and the narrator is trapped in its cycle, unable to break free. By the time the narrator reaches their fifth shift, the boundaries between the real world and the nightmare world of the restaurant have completely dissolved. The once familiar routines have shifted from uncomfortable to suffocating, and the narrator is no longer questioning the bizarre occurrences around them. They have become a part of the system, a cog in the wheel, and there is no escaping it. The customers, once odd and unsettling, are now grotesque inhuman figures that come and go following the same eerie rituals. The fryers malfunction at 3:33 a.m. The knocking at the back door continues at 2:11 a.m. And the restaurant itself feels like it is closing in on the narrator, trapping them in a cycle of strangeness and horror. The rules, once cryptic and unsettling, have become a permanent part of the narrator's reality. They no longer question them. They no longer seek an escape. They are bound to the restaurant now, just like the other employees, all of them trapped in the same nightmarish cycle. The once ordinary fast food job has become something much darker, and the narrator is now a part of it. The crown, once a symbol of authority, has become a symbol of their entrapment. The restaurant is no longer just a joke, but it is a prison, and the narrator is its keeper, bound to the strange, unexplainable forces that govern it. There is no turning back. The cycle continues, and the narrator serves, smiles, and follows the rules. They have become part of the machine, and the machine will not stop. The eerie transformation of a once ordinary job at a Burger King into a terrifying and surreal experience for the narrator begins almost immediately. From the moment the narrator stumbles upon a crumpled flyer at the laundromat which advertises a night shift at a seemingly ordinary fast food restaurant, the situation escalates in unexpected and unsettling ways. The flyer promises good pay and a peculiar stipulation: must follow instructions. The narrator, in need of work, applies for the position without realizing that this seemingly ordinary fast food restaurant is anything but typical. The job quickly takes on an otherworldly dimension, and the narrator is drawn into an increasingly bizarre and unnerving world governed by strange and unsettling rules. As the narrator arrives for their first shift at the Burger King, they are struck by the uncanny atmosphere surrounding the place. The restaurant, located in an isolated area and not listed on GPS, feels out of place. It is well maintained but stands in stark contrast to the decay surrounding it, presenting an unnerving contrast to the environment. The building itself, though clean, has a sterile, almost unnatural feel, as if it has been frozen in time. This sense of oddness only intensifies when the narrator steps inside. The air is thick with the smell of burnt oil, combined with something unnervingly sweet and metallic. The atmosphere inside the restaurant is equally unsettling, with a dimly lit lobby and an automatic door that opens without human intervention, as if inviting the narrator to enter. The manager, Ray, greets the narrator with a thin, weary smile and immediately hands them a piece of paper wrapped in plastic. This paper, Ray explains, contains rules that must be followed strictly, and it is imperative for the narrator to keep it with them at all times during their shift. While the narrator assumes the paper simply outlines standard company policies, they soon realize that these rules are far from ordinary. The rules themselves are cryptic and unsettling, introducing a disturbing reality that doesn't align with typical fast food operations. For instance, a Whopper with no meat must be served without question, and a customer in a plastic crown must not be offered food or made eye contact with. There are also more bizarre instructions. The fryers must not be disturbed after 3:33 a.m., knocking at the back door must be ignored, and the drive-through speaker must be unplugged if it starts speaking in reverse. These instructions quickly become the guiding force for the narrator. And as they follow the rules, the reality of the situation deepens and becomes more sinister. The employees, including Ray, exhibit an unsettling calm with no apparent sense of surprise at the strange events unfolding in the restaurant. The narrator, unsure of what is truly happening, follows along, feeling more and more trapped in an increasingly unnerving environment. As the night progresses, the narrator begins to observe strange behaviors from customers and employees alike. The first customer, a man in a gray sedan, orders the bizarre meatless Whopper and drives off in silence without a word or receipt. The narrator, disturbed but not yet fully understanding the situation, hands over the meal with a flat, "Have a royal night," just as instructed. Ray, when asked about the strange interaction, cryptically advises the narrator to never ask about the no-meat Whopper. This mysterious customer is the first of many, and as the night wears on, the odd occurrences become more frequent and difficult to ignore. Customers begin to behave strangely, offering exact change with no small talk, and some of their faces blur in the narrator's memory as if their minds are trying to forget them. The narrator feels the growing weight of these strange occurrences, but continues to follow the rules, obeying the strange instructions without fully understanding why or what consequences might follow. As the shift continues, the restaurant begins to feel less like a fast food joint and more like a place caught between worlds where the rules are the only constants in a reality that is rapidly unraveling. At 3:33 a.m., the fryers malfunction as per the instructions, and the restaurant falls into an eerie silence. The fryer oil appears thicker and darker, almost like coagulated blood, and the smell in the air grows more oppressive, as if something malevolent is lurking just beneath the surface. The knocking at the back door happens precisely at 2:11 a.m., just as predicted. Ray stands guard in front of the door, ensuring no one opens it. The knocking stops after a few moments, but the sense of foreboding continues to build. The narrator, growing increasingly uneasy, wonders whether these strange occurrences are a part of a larger pattern or if they are simply isolated events that should be ignored. But the more the narrator follows the rules, the more they feel themselves being drawn deeper into the restaurant's strange grip, unable to escape the cycle of bizarre events and unsettling encounters. By the second shift, the narrator is no longer questioning the strangeness of the events unfolding in the Burger King. The once perplexing rules are now ingrained in their mind, and they follow them automatically like a machine. The customers, once odd but manageable, have become more disturbing. The woman who orders the meatless Whopper returns again, her appearance deteriorating with each visit. Her once human features have become grotesque, her skin a sickly gray, her eyes wide and unblinking. Despite the horror of her transformation, the narrator serves her without hesitation, following the rules without question. This sense of resignation grows stronger with each passing hour, and the narrator becomes more and more disconnected from the reality they once knew. They are no longer an observer in this strange world. They have become a part of it. The other customers who arrive during the shift will continue to follow the same eerie pattern, their behavior mechanical and detached. Some of the faces seem to blur or distort in the narrator's mind, further deepening the sense that something supernatural is at play. The restaurant, once a mundane fast food job, is now a space where the boundaries between reality and the supernatural are increasingly difficult to distinguish. As the night wears on, the restaurant itself becomes more oppressive, as if the very walls are closing in on the narrator. The rules continue to govern every action, and the sense of unease becomes more palpable with each passing minute. At 2:11 a.m., the knocking at the back door happens again, and Ray stands in front of it, blocking anyone from opening it. The fryers malfunction at exactly 3:33 a.m., and the fryer oil appears darker and thicker, as if something is moving within it. The customers continue to behave in odd, detached ways, their faces becoming more grotesque with each visit. The narrator no longer questions their behavior. They simply serve them, following the rules without hesitation. The drive-through speaker crackles with distorted voices, issuing strange commands that must be followed without question. The restaurant itself feels like a prison, and the narrator is caught in an inescapable cycle of strange occurrences and disturbing rituals. The once ordinary fast food job has become a twisted nightmare, and the narrator is now a part of it. The crown, once a symbol of authority, has become a mark of their entrapment, a reminder that they are no longer in control of their own fate. By the third shift, the narrator has fully accepted the strange, terrifying reality of the restaurant. The rules, once cryptic and unsettling, have become second nature, and the narrator follows them without question. The customers, once odd but manageable, have now become grotesque in human figures. The woman with the wide eyes has devolved into something monstrous. Her skin a sickly gray, her mouth stretching unnaturally wide, and her voice becoming a hollow echo. The other customers are no less disturbing, with one man appearing to have no skin at all, and another figure hidden beneath a hoodie made entirely of writhing vines. Despite the horror of these encounters, the narrator serves them without hesitation, obeying the rules without thought. The restaurant has become a nightmarish world where reality no longer exists, and the narrator is trapped in an endless cycle of serving grotesque customers and following the strange, cryptic rules that govern the establishment. As the fourth shift begins, the narrator feels the weight of inevitability pressing down on them. The once normal fast food job has become a prison, and the rules that once seemed absurd now feel like immutable laws that must be followed without question. The customers continue to arrive, each one more bizarre and grotesque than the last, and the narrator serves them automatically, their sense of humanity slipping away with each interaction. The fryer oil is thick and dark like coagulated blood, and the air smells of decay and rotting meat. The knocking at the back door continues at precisely 2:11, and Ray stands guard, ensuring no one opens it. The fryers malfunction at 3:33 a.m., and the restaurant falls into an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional malfunction of the drive-through speaker or the low hum of the fluorescent lights. The narrator has become a part of the strange, otherworldly reality of the Burger King, and they no longer question the bizarre occurrences. They have become a part of the machine serving the customers and following the rules, trapped in an endless cycle that they cannot escape. The crown, once a symbol of authority, has become a symbol of their entrapment, and the restaurant has become their prison. There is no way out. The cycle continues, and the narrator serves smiles and follows the rules. They have become part of the machine, and the machine will not stop. The narrator's descent into the eerie, unsettling world of the Burger King restaurant begins subtly with a seemingly innocuous flyer offering a night shift job at the fast food chain. Initially, the narrator views this as just another way to earn a paycheck, a temporary solution to their financial needs. However, from the moment they apply for the wish and set foot in the restaurant, they realize something is amiss. The place, tucked away behind a forgotten highway exit, is isolated and eerily out of place, with no GPS location listed for it and no sign of regular foot traffic. The restaurant itself, despite being well-maintained, stands as a stark contrast to the dilapidated surroundings. It's not just clean, it's unnaturally sterile, like a forgotten relic of a different time. The air is thick with the smell of burnt oil and something strangely metallic, adding to the growing sense of discomfort and unease. As the narrator steps inside the Burger King for their first shift, the dim lighting, flickering neon sign, and automatic doors that open seemingly on their own set, the stage for the increasingly bizarre and unnerving events that are about to unfold. The manager, Ray, greets the narrator with a cold, tired smile, his eyes betraying a deep sense of exhaustion and unease. He hands the narrator a rolled-up piece of paper wrapped in plastic, instructing them to read it carefully and keep it with them at all times during the shift. What seems like an ordinary set of workplace instructions soon turns into something far more sinister. These rules are not standard company policies, but a series of strange, cryptic directives that must be followed to avoid something far worse. The rules seem harmless at first glance. Serve a Whopper with no meat with a smile. Don't make eye contact with a man wearing a plastic crown, and ignore any knocking at the back door after a certain time. But as the narrator reads further, they begin to realize the true nature of these instructions. The rules are not just quirky, they are bizarre and supernatural in their scope, introducing a reality that defies explanation. As the night wears on, the narrator begins to understand that these seemingly innocuous instructions are not just part of a hazing ritual or an odd quirk of the restaurant's management. They are a set of unbreakable laws that govern the very fabric of the Burger King laws that hold sway over both the employees and the customers. For example, the mysterious customer who orders a Whopper with no meat is not just an unusual order. This customer follows a specific unsettling pattern. The narrator watches as the first customer, a man in a gray sedan, orders the meatless Whopper with no pickles, no receipt, and drives off in complete silence. The interaction feels surreal, yet the narrator is compelled to comply, handing over the order with a flat, emotionless, "Have a royal night," just as instructed by Ray. The man's strange, wordless exit leaves the narrator with a lingering sense of unease. But Ray's cryptic warning, "Never ask about the no meat," Whopper suggests that this is only the beginning of something far more disturbing. As the night progresses, the atmosphere in the restaurant grows even more oppressive. The once ordinary fast food job has now transformed into something far more sinister. The drive-through orders are becoming increasingly bizarre, with customers offering exact change, but little to no conversation. Some customers' faces blur in the narrator's memory, as though their minds are subconsciously trying to erase the details of these strange interactions. The customer's behavior is becoming more mechanical and detached, and the narrator begins to question the true nature of the restaurant and its patrons. The eerie quiet is broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint sizzle of the fryers, creating an atmosphere that feels more like a liminal space than an actual fast food restaurant. By 3:33 a.m., the fryers, presumably a reference to the deep fryers, malfunction as per the rules, adding to the growing sense of unease. The fryer oil, once a simple liquid, appears darker and thicker, almost as if something unnatural is trapped inside it. The narrator swears they see something moving inside the fryer, something pale and unnatural. But when they blink, it's gone. Despite the strange occurrences, the narrator continues to follow the rules, serving the customers and completing the tasks assigned to them without question. The restaurant's strange and supernatural grip on the narrator is growing stronger, and they find themselves increasingly detached from their own sense of reality. Each new shift seems to pull them further into this nightmarish cycle, where the lines between the mundane and the supernatural are blurred beyond recognition. At 2:11 a.m., the back door knocks again, precisely as the rules dictate. Ray positions himself in front of the door, ensuring that no one opens it, and the knocking stops after 20 seconds, as if it were simply part of the ritual. The restaurant, once a place of ordinary fast food and customer service, has become a site of strange, almost ritualistic behaviors that seem to govern the entire establishment. The rules, once cryptic and unsettling, have become ingrained in the narrator's mind, and they follow them without hesitation. The customers, once odd but manageable, have now become grotesque figures that seem to embody the unnatural forces at play within the restaurant. One customer, who has no skin and orders a simple Coke, adds to the growing horror. Another customer, made entirely of vines, orders a meal but moves in a way that defies the natural laws of biology. The narrator continues to serve them, following the rules with a sense of resignation. But the grotesque nature of these interactions leaves them feeling hollow and disturbed. By the second night shift, the sense of inevitability becomes more pronounced. The narrator has accepted the rules and the strange occurrences as part of their reality. They no longer question the bizarre nature of the customers or the inexplicable events unfolding around them. The restaurant, once a place of work, has become a prison, a place where time is suspended and reality has become fluid. The customers continue to behave in increasingly unnatural ways, and the narrator follows the rules without question, unable to escape the cycle that has been set in motion. The fryer oil grows darker and thicker with each passing shift, and the knocking at the back door becomes a constant reminder that something is waiting just outside, something that must never be acknowledged or interacted with. The once ordinary fast food job has now become a nightmarish existence, where the narrator is no longer in control of their actions and is instead trapped in a supernatural reality that they can neither escape nor understand. As the third shift begins, the narrator feels a deep sense of resignation settle over them. The rules have become second nature, and they follow them without hesitation, serving the grotesque customers who continue to arrive in increasingly bizarre and monstrous forms. The woman with the wide, hollow eyes, who once seemed like a strange but harmless customer, has now become a fixture of the night shift. her appearance deteriorating with each visit. Her skin has turned a sickly gray, her movements jerky and unnatural, and her voice has become flat and monotonous. Despite the horror of her transformation, the narrator serves her without hesitation, following the rules as they have been instructed. The other customers are no less strange, with one man appearing to have no skin and another figure made entirely of writhing vines. Each customer is more grotesque and unnerving than the last, and the narrator is trapped in the cycle, unable to break free. The fryer oil continues to grow thicker and darker, and the knocking at the back door becomes an ever-present reminder of the supernatural forces that govern the restaurant. Ray, the manager, has become a silent guardian, standing in front of the door to prevent anyone from opening it. The time clock stamps the narrator's card in blood-red ink, marking another shift in the cycle that has become their reality. The sense of dread that once accompanied the strange occurrences has now been replaced by an eerie acceptance. The narrator has become part of the restaurant, part of the strange supernatural world that governs it. They no longer question the rules or the bizarre customers. They simply follow them like a puppet performing its part in a larger, darker play. By the fourth shift, the restaurant has become a prison, and the narrator is no longer an employee. They are part of the machine, serving the grotesque customers and following the rules without hesitation. The once ordinary fast food joint has become a liminal space between worlds, and the narrator is trapped in an unending cycle of strange occurrences and disturbing rituals. The customers, once odd but manageable, have become grotesque and monstrous figures, and the fryer oil is now thick and dark like coagulated blood. The knocking at the back door, once an oddity, is now a regular part of the shift, and Ray stands guard, preventing anyone from opening it. The rules, once strange and cryptic, have become second nature to the narrator, and they follow them without question, serving the grotesque customers who arrive one by one, each more disturbing than the last. As the narrator reaches their fifth shift, they can no longer deny the sense of inevitability that has taken hold of them. The restaurant has become their world, and they have become part of it. The customers, the rules, and the strange occurrences that once seemed so terrifying are now part of their routine, and they no longer question them. The crown, once a symbol of power, has become a symbol of their entrapment, and the restaurant has become their prison. The cycle continues, and the narrator serves, smiles, and follows the rules. They have become part of the machine, and the machine will not stop. The story begins with the narrator's decision to take a night shift at a Burger King restaurant that at first appears to be just another job. However, this seemingly ordinary fast food chain is far from what it seems. Located in a secluded area hidden behind an abandoned highway turnoff, the Burger King is not on any GPS system, nor is it well known. The establishment itself is clean to an almost unnatural degree. No graffiti, no decay, standing in stark contrast to the desolate surroundings. Despite this oddity, the narrator finds themselves drawn to the opportunity after spotting a flyer at the laundromat advertising a night shift job promising good pay and the need to follow instructions. Intrigued and in need of work, the narrator applies for the position, unaware that they are about to enter an environment that will quickly devolve into a nightmare. The unease starts as soon as the narrator enters the restaurant for their first shift. A flickering neon sign glowing a sickly yellow casts an eerie light over the building, while the smell of burnt oil combined with something disturbingly sweet and metallic fills the air. The atmosphere is oppressive, thick with tension, as the narrator steps into a dimly lit lobby where the automatic door opens by itself as if beckoning them inside. Once inside, the feeling of discomfort intensifies, and the narrator is greeted by Ray, the manager, whose cold, wary demeanor sets the tone for the unsettling events to follow. Ray hands the narrator a rolled-up piece of paper wrapped in plastic, instructing them to read it carefully and keep it on them at all times during their shift. This piece of paper, as the narrator soon discovers, contains a set of rules that are not ordinary company policies, but rather bizarre and cryptic instructions that must be followed to prevent something much darker from happening. These rules are the key to understanding the strange reality of the Burger King, a reality that blurs the lines between the mundane and the supernatural. At first glance, the rules seem harmless enough, such as serving a Whopper with no meat, with a smile and without question. There is also the peculiar directive to avoid making eye contact with a man wearing a plastic crown who enters the restaurant, as he does not order food, but rather simply takes it. Additionally, the instructions warn employees not to open the back door if it knocks at exactly 2:11 a.m., not to mop behind the ice cream machine, and not to disturb the fryers after 3:33 a.m. While these instructions are strange, Ray insists they are necessary for maintaining the balance in the restaurant. He speaks with such calm certainty, as if these rules are just a normal part of the restaurant's operations, further deepening the narrator's sense of unease. The rules grow increasingly disturbing as the night goes on, and the narrator begins to question if this is some form of hazing ritual or if something much more sinister is at play. As the shift continues, the narrator notices the strange behavior of the customers. The first sign that something is off occurs when a man orders the infamous Whopper with no meat through the drive-thru. The order is processed without question, and the customer accepts it without a word, driving off into the night with the same eerie silence. This strange interaction sticks with the narrator, but Ray's warning never ask about the no meat Whopper keeps them from probing further. As more customers arrive, their behavior becomes increasingly unsettling. They speak little, offer exact change, and do not engage in conversation. Even their faces seem to blur and fade from memory, as if the narrator's mind is trying to erase their details. These customers are not just odd, they are part of a larger, unexplainable pattern that grows more sinister with each passing hour. At 3:33 a.m., presumably the fryers begin malfunctioning, sputtering and hissing in a way that adds to the growing tension. The oil in the fryer begins to look darker and thicker, almost as if something unnatural is lurking inside. The atmosphere becomes heavier and the feeling of dread intensifies. The rule about not disturbing the fryers after 3:33 a.m. is drilled into the narrator's mind, and they follow it without hesitation, unsure of what might happen if they break it. In the midst of this, the knocking at the back door precisely at 2:11 a.m. occurs just as the rules dictate. Ray standing by the door prevents anyone from opening it, ensuring that the cycle remains unbroken. The knocking stops after 20 seconds, but the oppressive feeling remains as if something is waiting just beyond the door, something that must not be acknowledged or interacted with. As the night stretches on, the narrator's grip on reality begins to slip. The once ordinary fast food job has transformed into a surreal and nightmarish experience. The customers become more grotesque, with one man who appears to have no skin at all, his flesh exposed like raw meat. Another customer, hidden under a hoodie, appears to be made entirely of vines writhing and twisting unnaturally. The narrator serves them without question, following the rules as instructed. But each new encounter brings a deeper sense of horror. The reality of the situation becomes undeniable. This is no ordinary restaurant, and the customers are not ordinary people. They are part of something far darker and more incomprehensible. At 5:45 a.m., the restaurant's atmosphere is more suffocating than ever. The air is thick with the smell of burnt grease, mixed with something far worse, decaying meat and wet hair. The fryer oil continues to grow darker, almost coagulating, and the strange occurrences intensify. The knocking at the back door becomes more frequent, and the customers grow even more grotesque. The once distant sense of dread has now become a constant presence, and the narrator realizes they are no longer just an employee, they are part of this strange, otherworldly system. The rules, once cryptic and unsettling, have become ingrained in the narrator's psyche. They no longer question the bizarre events. Instead, they follow the rules automatically, like a machine performing its duties without hesitation. The crown, which was once a symbol of authority, now feels like a symbol of entrapment, a heavy burden that the narrator cannot escape. The Burger King, once a place of fast food and mundane tasks, has now become a prison. A place where the rules govern every action, and the line between reality and the supernatural is irrevocably blurred. The customers, once strange but manageable, have become monstrous, and the narrator is caught in an unending cycle of serving them, never questioning the ritual that has taken over their life. The strange occurrences, the malfunctioning fryers, the eerie knocking at the back door, and the bizarre customers are no longer shocking. They have become part of the narrator's reality. They are trapped in this nightmarish existence, unable to escape the cycle that has taken hold of them. The narrator has become part of the Burger King, and the Burger King has become part of them. The strange, supernatural forces that govern the restaurant are now in control, and the narrator is bound to them by the rules that must be followed. The once innocuous job has transformed into something far darker, and the narrator is no longer questioning the events unfolding around them. They have become a cog in the machine, an unwilling participant in a cycle that has no end. The crown, once a symbol of power, has become a mark of their entrapment, a reminder that they are no longer the person they once were. The rules, once strange and cryptic, are now part of their identity, and there is no escape. The cycle continues, and The narrator serves smiles and follows the rules. They have become part of the machine, and the machine will not stop. The Burger King is no longer a place of fast food. It is a prison, and the narrator is its warden forever, bound to the strange supernatural world that governs it. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration, it becomes clear that the importance of resilience and adaptability in the face of change cannot be overstated. In today's fast-paced world, one thing is certain: change is inevitable. From the rise of technology to the evolution of social dynamics, everything is in a constant state of flux. How we respond to this change, however, is what ultimately defines our success. Americans in particular have always prided themselves on their ability to bounce back, to rebuild, and to adapt regardless of the challenges that come their way. Whether it's overcoming economic downturns, natural disasters, or personal setbacks, resilience is a core value that runs deep in the fabric of American society. Consider the history of the United States. Moment in time again, the country has faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. From the Great Depression to the Civil Rights Movement, America has experienced tumultuous periods where hope seemed distant. Yet each time the nation emerged stronger with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to progress. This ability to persevere in the face of adversity is not only a historical truth, but also a cultural one. The American spirit, fueled by optimism and an inherent belief in the possibility of better days, has been a driving force in overcoming obstacles, both big and small. At an individual level, resilience is equally important. In our daily lives, each of us is confronted with moments of difficulty, whether it's the loss of the breakdown of relationships or the weight of personal struggle. We are all tested at various points in our lives, but it is not the obstacles themselves that define us, but how we respond to them. Resilience allows us to bounce back from adversity and use the experience as a stepping stone for personal growth. It teaches us that failure is not a permanent state, but rather an opportunity to learn and improve. This mindset is essential in a society that values progress and self-improvement. In modern times, especially in the digital age, resilience has taken on new dimensions. The rapid pace of technological advancements, while offering incredible opportunities, has also led to a sense of uncertainty for many. The workforce is constantly evolving, and entire industries have been disrupted by automation and artificial intelligence. In this environment, individuals must adapt and acquire new skills if they are to remain relevant. The ability to continuously learn and reinvent oneself has become just as crucial as the ability to persevere through hardships. Those who embrace change, who seek out new opportunities, and who develop the skills necessary to thrive in an ever-changing landscape are the ones who will lead the way into the future. Yet resilience is not something that can be achieved overnight. It is cultivated through experience, reflection, and a willingness to face discomfort. It requires us to step outside our comfort zones, to embrace failure as part of the process, and to continue moving forward, even when the path ahead seems unclear. It is this very quality that has enabled Americans to push through challenges and come out stronger on the other side. Whether it's the grit required to start a small business or the determination to advocate for social change, resilience is a fundamental trait that defines success in America. In the context of community, resilience is equally vital. Across the United States, communities have faced numerous challenges, from economic recessions to public health crises. Yet it is in these times of struggle that communities often come together, finding strength and unity. Resilient communities are those that are able to support each other, to rally in times of need, and to work collaboratively toward common goals. The power of community resilience is perhaps most evident in the aftermath of natural disasters, when hurricanes devastate coastal cities or wildfires ravage the western states. The spirit of American resilience shines through. Volunteers flood into the affected areas, offering their time, resources, and support to help rebuild what has been lost. This collective action, driven by a shared sense of purpose and solidarity, exemplifies the strength of communities that refuse to be broken. Moreover, resilience plays a critical role in addressing the systemic challenges that continue to affect marginalized groups in the United States. Throughout history, African Americans, Native Americans, women, and other communities have faced discrimination and injustice. Yet despite the hardships, these groups have continuously fought for equality and social change. From the civil rights movement to the ongoing fight for LGBTQ+ rights, the resilience of these communities has been a driving force in pushing for a more inclusive and equitable society. Resilience in this context is not just about overcoming personal struggles, but also about fighting for systemic change that benefits all individuals. It's about standing up to injustice, raising one's voice for the oppressed, and ensuring that future generations inherit a more just and fair society. However, resilience does not come without its challenges. In today's world, we face a range of obstacles that can sometimes feel overwhelming: the pressures of social media, the mental health crisis, and the ever-increasing demands of daily life can leave individuals feeling isolated and burned out. It's important to recognize that resilience does not mean ignoring the impact of these pressures, but rather acknowledging them and finding healthy ways to cope. Building emotional resilience requires self-awareness, self-care, and seeking help when necessary. In a country where the pursuit of happiness is a fundamental right, it's crucial to understand that mental health is just as important as physical health. Taking the time to care for our minds, to find balance in our lives, and to seek support when needed is an integral part of building resilience in the modern age. Ultimately, the concept of resilience extends beyond individual experience. It is a shared value that binds society together. It is what allows us to weather storms, both literal and figurative, and emerge stronger, more united, and better equipped to face the future. Whether on a personal level or as a nation, resilience is what enables us to confront challenges head-on, to adapt to new circumstances, and to continue striving toward a better tomorrow. As we move forward, it is essential that we continue to foster resilience in ourselves and our communities and in the generations to come. Only then will we be able to navigate the uncertainties of the future with confidence, knowing that no matter what challenges lie ahead, we have the strength to overcome them. In conclusion, resilience is not just about bouncing back from adversity. It is about embracing change, growing through hardship, and emerging stronger in the process. It is a value deeply ingrained in the American spirit, one that has been tested time and time again throughout history. Whether it's overcoming personal challenges, supporting one another in times of crisis, or advocating for systemic change, resilience is what enables us to continue moving forward in a world that is constantly evolving. It is the ability to adapt, to learn, and to persevere that will ensure our success. As individuals, communities, and a nation, let us continue to build and cultivate resilience, for it is through resilience that we will overcome the challenges of today and shape the future of tomorrow.